Welcome! In front of me I have the brand new Motorola Razr 40 Ultra. You can barely see at the bottom, and I'll go for unboxing along with a quick overview of this phone. Now, I'll be completely honest, I'm a little bit excited about this one because it does stand out of the crowd of flip phones. I guess that's probably what flip/foldable ones. So yeah, oops. There we go. So let's get into it. Please do not remove the attached screen protector. That's not necessarily the best sign. Or use third-party screen protectors. Doing this so will void your device warranty. Great. Just to point this out, in terms of like other manufacturers like Samsung, which makes foldable devices, right? Here we also have this kind of screen protector, but you actually can remove it and it doesn't void your warranty. At least you could in the third one, and I think you can still do in a fourth one. And you can obviously also replace them. So it's a little bit weird seeing this here on a, what is it, fourth generation of a device. But in any case, let's just get into it. Just quickly check something out of curiosity. Damn, that is... Okay, I want to point this out because this is something weird, but really interesting. So since couple like Motorola's, decent ones that I unpacked, what I realize is that Motorola has like scented boxes. So if you take a sniff of this box, it actually smells nice, which is surprising because usually what you smell inside of a box is China. So here you have like a nice little scent to it. It's completely useless, just to be honest, but it adds into this experience. And just to kind of also clarify this, it's not only for like the expensive top $1,000 devices. I have seen this on like mid-range devices, and it's a nice thing to have. It adds to the experience of unpacking this. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to point that out. Anyway, let's just get a look what we got in here, and we do have a case. Go, that's one part, and that's the second part. Oh, interesting. So, unlike some other devices which come with this kind of case, they have this sticky side right here, which obviously this one has as well, but they're usually like a two-sided tape. Here we have like this rubber that is a little bit sticky, which is pretty nice thing to have because if it gets dirty, you can just wipe it off. Put it under water, rinse the dirt off, and it will just kind of start sticking again. So that's a really neat thing to have. I'm gonna set it to the side for now, and I'm gonna fit it later on. Now, finishing off what's in the box, we have a charger, and that is a 33 watt charger. And then we have a Type A, you can see right here, to Type C cable. And it's got a nice whiff of the box. Nice. Anyway, let's just get into the device. Can I slide it off? Oh yeah, I can. I can just get it out of here. Now you can see we do have a little bit of a crease right here. We have a magnificent display right over here. Let's just turn it on. Ooh, the hinge is actually pretty strong. So you won't be able to kind of like fold it easily. Yeah, that's pretty strong hinge, to be completely honest. Now, I'm gonna start off with the build because probably one of the things that you'll see, Motorola did change the build style of their devices. Now clamshell is completely flat. It has a nice little sound when it just closes, when the bezels just hit. It's definitely better because it's even, unlike for instance this garbage right over here with a gap that you can see the other stuff through, and this much harsher kind of clapping sound. Here it's significantly better. It's a little thing, but honestly when you're using this device every day and opening it and closing it, little things like just the little sound that it makes when it claps together it's significantly more enjoyable to hear than the harsh one that Samsung has. Now, like I mentioned, as you can see, we have basically almost no gap right here. You can kind of see through it, but that's probably just because the rubber seals kind of end right here. So yeah, it folds completely flat. It's not like a wedge, which is pretty nice. Also, in terms of closing, you can probably see that it creates this teardrop right here. So the crease right here that you normally have is significantly less noticeable than something like a fold phone from Samsung. This crease is just hard to miss. And just to kind of clarify this, as a person that has been using this for nearly a year, I believe, basically since it came out, that's the Fold 4. I heard a bunch of people say that, oh, you get used to the crease. Yeah, you do when you're in the darkness and you don't get to see it, but you take public transportation and the light shines on your device. Yeah, that crease is effing straight up blinding you. Because no matter how you position your device, this crease will always reflect sunlight into your eyes because it's uneven. So it is the most annoying thing you will probably experience. Here, because this crease is, well, not as egregious, this might not be as big of a problem. So there we go. Now, I'm gonna quickly go through the setup. And while I'm doing so, let's just quickly talk about this display right over here. So this is a 6.9 inch display. Nice. It's a 1080p by 2640 pixels, so it is significantly like taller, almost like a remote control, but it does close into something obviously more pocketable. It has LTPO AMOLED display, a foldable one, with 1 billion colors, 165 Hz refresh rate, HDR10 Plus certification, and a peak brightness of 1400 nits, so it can get pretty bright. And that is obviously a nice thing. One thing that I did kind of notice on my Fold 4 is that the display in like direct sunlight isn't necessarily as bright as I would want it. So it's nice that this is rocking like 1400 nits peak brightness, so obviously it should be pretty visible. Well, let's get a look at this display. This is something. So there we go. Maybe later. So this actually looks like a straight up home screen. That is neat. The reason I'm pointing that out is because previously we had like Samsung did do like a widget page or something along those lines. It had functionality, but in general, I like to see a home screen which I can actually interact with, and this basically has a straight up home screen like you do inside. They do change it a little bit. As you can see, the icons look different when you close them up. So we have a... Not sure why it redirects me right here. Okay, that's a little bit weird. But yeah, it's a straight up home screen, which is pretty nice. I like that. And the display right here, as you can obviously see, it's pretty big. It literally wraps around the cameras, which is a cool concept. I really like how it's done. So yeah. Now, enough gushing over this. Let's move over into the internals. So, this phone has a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is also the same one that the Fold 4 is running. So, it's not the newest one at the release. We have a Gen 2 processor right now, Snapdragon 8. So, this is an overclocked Gen 1. It's obviously pretty good. It's just not the top shelf one. And this device does come at obviously a premium price of roughly 1,200 euros. So it's not cheap, but honestly, I think it's still, in terms of pricing, is pretty good, especially for kind of what it offers. It's also more of like a wow device as well, so something to keep in mind. Now, continuing with the specs. We have a couple different versions, so we have either 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM, and the one that I have right here is, no clue, let me just quickly check, This is the 8 GB of RAM with 256 gigs of storage, which would be the cheapest version of it. Then you have the 256 with 12 gigs and half a terabyte with 12 gigs. So this is the lowest spec one, which is already at the lowest spec. 8 gigs of RAM with 256 gigs of storage is pretty good. Now, moving on, in terms of a battery in here, that's a surprise. This device has 3800 milliamp hour battery. Now, the reason this is surprise, because you might be thinking this device is, well, it's a normal, right now, unfolded device. It's basically the size of all the other devices that come with like a 5K battery. For foldable devices, that's not really the case. They do have a little bit more tech in them. For instance, like the hinges that take space and so on. So a 3800 milliamp hour battery, that is a pretty decent battery. And just to compare that to something else like the Fold 4, I'm gonna quickly just check it out. Fold 4 has not much bigger battery, and it is at 4400 milliamp hour battery. This has only 600 less milliamps, while, well, let's just compare the two sizes of these devices just so you can kind of see. So this is the Fold 4 and this is the Razr, right? So in terms of size, obviously you can see they are in, well, completely different ballparks, and it is still rocking a insanely big battery. I think for the foldable devices, this is the biggest battery yet. Now, when it comes down to Flip, which would be the absolute, like, more of a comparison, Flip, let's just quickly check. Flip has a 3700 milliamp hour battery, so it is 100 milliamps bigger, but it's still pretty good battery life for a foldable device, and obviously the biggest one yet. Okay, now with that being said, let's move over. So in terms of cameras, which we have two right here. As you can see, this is a kind of a fingerprint magnet, but yeah, we have two cameras right here. So the main one is a 12 megapixel wide sensor, and then we get a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and inside right here we get, there we go, the light is now shining correctly. Inside here we have a 32 megapixel wide sensor. Now those cameras, you can shoot at 4K 60 frames, and obviously 1080p as well, 30, 60, 120 slow motion. And with the inside one, the one right here, you can also shoot at 4K 60 frames max and 1080p 30, 60 as well. So recording wise, it's pretty good right here. Now the megapixels for the cameras aren't necessarily anything like big. It is a little bit on a lacking side with 12 megapixel and 13 on the outside. So that might not produce that great of photos comparing to some other flagship devices, and considering this does come at a, well, already a hefty price tag, I would expect a little bit better cameras. Now I assume the reason why we have these kind of cameras on here is to make this as minimum as possible bump. So there's like almost no bezel on these cameras, which obviously is pretty nice, but you do get to sacrifice the quality of this camera, both of them. So something to keep in mind when looking at this device. I haven't tested it out, so I recommend looking at other people that do photos to check out how good the photos here are. But it leads me to believe it won't be anything that's gonna just completely blow you away like some, for instance, iPhones or Samsung top devices, which obviously come at the same price as this. Now, with that being said, there's not much more to say about this. Obviously, it's running a pretty stock Android right here, which is obviously a nice thing, at least to me. It has pretty decent specs all around, a good battery, good displays, and obviously here you get to pay for the folding portion of this, the gimmick, we could say, of folding a phone like this, having it smaller. It's pretty thin still, even folded, which not every device is thin when folded. Compare this to this brick, you can kind of see the difference. I can even measure this just so you have like an actual, comparison 1-to-1. So So here we're looking at folded thickness of 1.6 centimeters. So it's not necessarily obviously the thinnest device, but unfolded, it's going to be, well, half of that, obviously. Now comparing that to a fold, actually not that big of a difference. So fold in the thickest portion is 1.6 and a half. If I can get it focused. Come on. As you can see right here, 1.6, 6.5, 6 or 7. Going back to this one. One and a half. So yeah, not much thinner to be honest, but because I am just measuring the thickness of, well, this right here, we do have also a camera bump right here, which would add a little bit to the thickness. Obviously also gets this annoying wobble, which not very fun here, like no wobble obviously. So yeah. So anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna just quickly go over the pros, cons about this device. Obviously the con, no matter how good this device is the price tag. Manufacturers are pushing these constantly higher price tags, and it's getting to a little bit of a ridiculous point. At $1,200 US for a device like this, it's a little bit too much, especially when this is coming with an older processor. Now it's not obviously like generations behind, but it is a generation behind. So it's the previous top Snapdragon. We have a newer one, which this one isn't using. It's been released, well, right now, and it's one gen of Snapdragons behind, while still wanting $1,200, or actually euros, which is I think a little bit more. So yeah, that's a little bit of an L right here, but it does make up for it, arguably. So the first thing, obviously, that is a pro is this front cover display, or however you want to call it. It is huge, it is nice, bright, and it serves a purpose, and it serves it very well. And in all honesty, you could probably use this cover display right here to do everything on this device, and you wouldn't need to open it up. And obviously that will also give you a better battery life. Now another pro will be the battery life right here. It is one of the biggest foldable batteries yet. And unlike other Samsung devices, this one comes with a charger. So props to Motorola for including the charger for a device that costs $1,200. I'm saying that because $1,800 doesn't give you a charger. Apparently that's too much to ask. So yeah, pretty good right here. Now the cameras are a little bit of an L right here, being pretty low at 12 and 13 megapixels. That's nothing really mind-blowing. It's honestly, in terms of like numbers, something that you would look for in like budget to mid-range devices. So it's a little bit underwhelming right here, but they do have the option to obviously record at 4K at 60 frames, and that's partially because of the good processor in here. And lastly will be the, as a pro, inside display. Obviously pretty nice, really bright. Just to kind of max out the brightness, yoink, there we go. As you can see, it gets pretty bright. And just to kind of compare this to maybe my device, just as a one-to-one, apples to apples. Let's try to open up something, has a nice white background. Okay, so this right now is max brightness. This is max brightness. Compared to this, you can obviously see the significant difference in brightness. So yeah, that's again $1,800 disappointment right here. This inside the display is really bright, and you should have no problem actually viewing this outdoors, especially like now that we have summer and it's sunlight is here now and pretty bright. My display, when I'm taking public transportation and just trying to watch something on my screen, yeah, it's pretty hard to see sometimes. This one should have no such a problem. And obviously the biggest win right here is the minimal crease. I can barely feel it under my finger. You can see it under the light. Something that I cannot say about this. You can feel and see the crease on this hunk of brick right here. Here, I can't really, I mean, you can feel it, but it's barely noticeable. And obviously the light, I'm trying to show this crease, like I'm pointing the light specifically, deliberately, so you can see it. But in general, it's one of the least noticeable creases I have encountered so far, personally. I think there are other devices that might have a even better like mitigation of the crease from, I believe it was Oppo and Find N. I think these, from how they look like on pictures, might be better, but like I said, personally, this is the best one I have seen in my hand. So yeah, pretty nice device. I do genuinely like it. I would like it even more if it was at a more reasonable price tag. And with that being said, hopefully you found this video informative, and I still didn't put on the case, so let's just do that. Though, let's first mop up the smudges so it looks nice. How do I want to put that on? Like this. Okay, there we go. So that's the case. Now obviously it adds a little bit more bulk to the device. Also, one thing that I just noticed, the phone doesn't seem to be opening fully, well, to be completely flat. As you can see, it has a little bit of an angle to it. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that out. But yeah, anyway, so with that being said, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.